Hi friends, in Planet Earth Dating, it's Sunday, October 13th, 2019. In both the Lynn life and the Jamie body mind, the authorized souls remain only child souls from the deeper, denser dimensions, and all other souls from all other dimensions, as long as the souls are already living by the many search for truth rules already given to the search for truth community by wiser minds above all of us. And those rules include following instructions from above. One of the instructions that has been given to this search for truth community is to film on a regular basis some of the sessions that we do multiple times a day, with the intent to be of service to create worlds that work in all dimensions and for all categories of sentience, and most particularly to stop the destruction of planet Earth at the hands of humanity.
That's true.
So when we get these filming instructions, we have to figure out what we're supposed to film about, because otherwise it's not effective and not what we're supposed to do. We've got to figure out what is the assignment that wiser minds above are sending in. What is supposed to be the inquiry, the topic of the filming. And we have this big issue of the divine plan for planet Earth having come disconnected from the reality of how bad things are here.
That's true.
That the plan as was written perhaps 100 years ago was based in reality, and we don't know when the disconnect got big enough to be a topic of conversation, but it's been unhinged for 5 or 10 years for sure, and maybe 20 or 50 years possibly.
That's
possibly
true.
As long as 60 years. We don't know when it came unhinged, but we do know that it has come unhinged, and that divine plans, our understanding is, and I'm not sure who's speaking, divine plans, we have been taught, are the plans that begin with how things are, take into account all the variables of the free will dance, have plenty of levels of backup to take into account the people who freak out and don't do what they're supposed to do.
That's true.
And then arrive at the best possible outcome, that best outcome that is possible given the realities of the situation, and that if we take into account the interdimensional nature of reality, many things are possible that would not ordinarily be possible.
That's true.
Inside of one dimension in and of itself. So we would very much like to be of service in today's filming to weave a divine plan from the realities as they exist.
That's true.
In addition, we have this signal of Baxter, our little farm dog, who has developed a really bad habit of running off the farm, and it's not safe. There are other dogs who are much bigger than Baxter and who he has insulted.
That's true.
And they're not happy with Baxter, and he kind of is aggressive with them, and he could get really hurt.
Oh yeah.
So it's a bad plan to run off the farm, and he does it right away. Now he does it right away.
That's right.
We all come outside, and he basically heads for the fence and bolts.
Yep.
So now he's confined to a cable like he was before we spent the many thousands of dollars to have our tiny farm fully fenced.
That's true.
And what does that represent? Because he's just being crazy. There's plenty of farm for him to roam.
That's true.
And he could be running around having a fabulous time, and instead he's confined to a cable or confined inside. But when he's inside too much, he just goes crazy. And that's how it is for all of us. Humans go crazy also when they're inside too much.
That's true.
It's really true. We all need to be outside. So here's this reality of basically oppositional, defiant behavior to what the situation actually calls for.
That's true.
And we find it to be everywhere in the substance of planet Earth. And now how do we get from here to something that works? Let's attempt to just draw the energy into something cohesive, just grooming the energy. And somebody's saying, do you think this will work? And the thing is that we do this multiple times a day, every
That's
day, and
true.
we have for years. So I think whatever it's going to do, it's already done.
That's true.
We're happy to do it again, as we do many times a day, but I don't think that any of us should hold our breath that this is going to have a measurable impact, because we're doing it all the time. This is part of the ambient background vibration now.
That's true.
We do it all the time. For whom is the message, and why do you ask? We see that there are other planets with this level of destruction where the destruction has been stopped. Because
That's
when we say
true.
what has worked on other planets with this level of destruction to stop the destruction, there are planets
That's true.
with this level of destruction where the destruction has stopped. What has worked on other planets with this level of destruction to stop the destruction, and how may we be of service to implement those strategies?
Well, it tears open a really big hole in the sky.
It does feel better. What has worked on other planets with this level of destruction to stop the destruction, and how may we be of service to implement those strategies?
I don't hear anything.
I don't hear anything, but I can see something. It's probably too far away to be able to hear anything, but I can see somebody walking through what might be some kind of spaceship or starship kind of thing, because I get a sense of motion on a large scale.
That's true.
And it's as though he's coming over to a desk and looking at something, pushing some buttons.
I feel the pushing of buttons feeling.
And he is kind of shaking his head in a no shake and walking away again. I don't know what that means, but I can see that guy. What has worked on other planets with this level of destruction to stop the destruction? And how may we be of service to implement those strategies? Do you guys know there isn't a divine plan for planet Earth that is actually based in reality? Do you know that? They don't want to acknowledge that.
They don't want to acknowledge that, and they don't want to look at what reality actually is.
No. Well, this is how humanity is also.
That's true.
It's how Baxter is.
That's true.
It's how this fabric of wanting to fantasize is really intertwined with the fabric of planet Earth.
That's true.
People don't tend to even care what's real. They don't care. They just take positions
That's true.
and act as if that has any value. What has worked on other planets with this level of destruction to stop the destruction? It's quiet,
It's
and the
very
portal is
quiet,
open.
And the portal is very open.
And that is of service. It is of service to open the portal to higher vibrations.
That's true.
How may we be of service to stop the destruction? How may we be of service to help weave a divine plan that's based in reality, that takes us from wherever we are as a biosphere to the best possible outcome? How can we do that? How can we help?
It's very clearing in the head.
It is.
How can we help?
How can we help? Is there anybody up there who's been affiliated with those other planets where the destruction was stopped once it had already reached this level of destruction, who would like to say something? How did they do it? Can we ask to be shown? How did you guys do it?
Well, this is not the answer to that question. But I see that presence in that much higher dimension who was on that starship.
Mm-hmm.
And what it feels like, and I could be wrong, but it feels like he was on a planet where the destruction was really coming pretty hard, and they figured out what they would need to do to stop it, and it feels like they just didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he's on the starship, and maybe everyone who survived is still on that starship. I don't know. Because he feels like
we didn't
do it, which is not the answer to the question, but it
could be
feeling.
why we're seeing him.
Right?
We're being shown him. It's like, well, sometimes they don't do it. And I think that is a common fantasy, actually, in Ground Zero Planet Earth, is that people think, oh, we'll just all get on starships. And
that's true.
First, we don't have that technology in place.
That's true.
And second, we've met a lot of these interstellar travelers where 99.99999% of life just stayed on the planet and died, and a teeny little 0.0000001% of the planet did leave in a starship, and the people on the starship aren't happy. They're all sad and miserable.
That's
and
true.
Who's to say that they got the better deal? I'm not convinced that they did.
If you feel the vibration of the thoughts, doesn't it feel like a lot of people on that spaceship wish they had just died on the planet with everybody else?
I should have just stayed.
That's how they feel, or I'm wrong.
We've met many of these interstellar travelers who just wish that they had stayed. They second guess themselves and think they made the wrong choice.
That's true.
For him is the message, and why do you ask? And the point is to stop the destruction. Why don't we just stop destroying it? How can we start to care about reality again? As a collective, as a species. As a collective, as a species, how can we start to care about reality again? Who said to film? Who is it that said to film? Oh, he wants things to be different than they are.
Like everything to be different. Like none of the things be the same.
I'm sorry. Is there anybody up there who's interested in weaving an actual divine plan that begins with the actual realities as they exist on planet Earth and gets us to the best possible outcome with adequate levels of backup?
That's true.
Back in the day when we were in touch with actual godly presences who seemed to also be in touch with reality, they would say that there were so many different levels of backup to the divine plan that there was no way to tear a hole through its fabric.
That's right.
There just wasn't a way, that the backups were too extreme. And now the plans not only don't seem to have backup, they seem to have kind of like leaps where some magic has to happen to get from one side of the canyon to the other side of the canyon.
I feel that feeling.
And there's no backup at all to any of the steps. Every single thing has to be handled precisely, perfectly by the individuals involved, kind of like in violation of the laws of physics and psychology. That's not a divine plan. That's a fantasy. That's a fantasy.
That's true.
We might as well go sit out on the street and wait for Santa to pull up and give us a ride in his sleigh.
Exactly.
Or Aladdin with his magic carpet or something like that. That's not going to happen. What now to reestablish upward flow?
You know what the feeling is?
No.
It's that same feeling of the sitting on the couch no matter what,
Yeah.
because it feels like they say we can't possibly make a divine plan.
But they're not even trying.
But they're not even trying.
Yeah, no, I don't like them at all.
No.
All right.
And then I'm too important to make a divine plan.
Oh yeah, I can't possibly be bothered, but I've got nothing to do.